As we keep moving through September, we continue to get ever so closer to the release of the Trails in the Sky remake. And now we're kind of at a point where Falcom and Gung Ho have kind of already hit their strongest points home when it comes to the promoting and the advertising. Since we're very, very close to release, we're kind of just in a state where we're just gotta wait until the game comes out, especially since we've had the demo recently. Until very recently, Falcom actually came out and said, thanks to an interview with the president, Toshihiro Kondo, coming out and talking more about the idea of future remakes past Sky 1. Now, I'm sure, of course, a lot of us were already expecting that at some point Falcom would get around to remaking Trails in the Sky SC, the second game in the Trails in the Sky trilogy, with how just the first game ends. And speaking on that, of course, this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers for Trails in the Sky 1, but mostly 2, considering it's going to remake of 2. Pretty sure I feel like I don't need to give this, but as always, I always like to go ahead and give my spoiler warnings, just in case anyone happens around these videos who has not been caught up or has seen something. I always like to just do those things, just in case. So today I'm here to talk about the interview that Kondo had, talking about the future of Trails, but mostly when it comes to the remakes. And I also know that I'm kind of pretty late when it comes to talking about this, but when you got things like college coming the way, it kind of just happens, and kind of just go with the flow. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on in with our first article to go over. The first article I want to go over here today is right here at pushsquare.com, which is where I first found out that they were going to be that Falcom was going to be doing a remake of Trails in the Sky SC. So let's go. Second Trails in the Sky remake, all but confirmed by Falcom boss. SC up next. It's looking more and more likely that Trails in the Sky First Chapter won't be a standalone remake. Talkative Falcom president Toshihiro Kondo himself has basically just outed the developers' plans to remake the second game in the series, Trails in the Sky SC. In an interview with Automaton, which I will be going over next as well, Kondo admits that just remaking the first Trails in the Sky makes little sense, especially from a player perspective. Which, yeah, of course, Kondo is very right about that, especially with the way the first game ends with Joshua leaving Estelle. It would be actually criminal if they didn't decide to remake the second game, because I would imagine this remake is going to open up the doors and the gateways to a lot more new fans coming in. If we didn't follow up with a remake of Trails in the Sky SC, people would go, "You've got to be kidding me." So we do want to do a remake along the lines of Trails in the Sky Second Chapter, he explains with a shocking degree of transparency. Just to recap, first chapter is a ground-up full 3D remake of 2004 Trails in the Sky. 2006 sequel, Trails in the Sky SC, is a direct follow-up, the second part of a 3-game trilogy in the overarching Trails franchise. So does this mean that the third installment, Trails in the Sky the Third, is also a lock for the remake treatment? Well, Kondo doesn't take things that far, stating, as for remakes beyond SC, I'd say it depends on fan demand. Which, that's totally fair. SC, obviously, of course, is, that's the easy lock, you have to do that one. It's just like I was saying earlier, absolutely criminal if you don't. But going forward with the third, and I think somewhere in one of these, I'll try to see if I can find it. I really want to find it for the video. I feel like I remember him stating demand for Crossbell game remakes as well. That all depends on fan demand, which makes a lot of sense. Also, especially because Sky the Third isn't it has some important story stuff for characters like Kevin and newly introduced at that point, Reese, but Sky's second chapter really kind of finishes the most important stuff from when it comes to Estelle and Joshua's stories. So yeah, of course, makes a lot of sense. Now let's go onwards to Automaton, the next thing I want to talk about, to go in more depth on the kind of the interview. It's not really a super long one, but they do have a little bit more things to share than the other website had. The first half of this is what the other website already went over, so I'll go and skip ahead a little bit to where things are newer. So right over here, back in 2004, we ended up keeping players waiting quite a while for SC after the release of Trails in the Sky PC version. This time we want to avoid such a long gap. As for remakes beyond that, I'd say it depends on fan demand. So this part of Kondo talking about I want to avoid such a long gap, that kind of makes me believe it's possible maybe that the remake for SC could be out sometime next year. Maybe they could kind of follow the same pattern that Trails had for this year, which this year we had Daybreak 2 in February and Sky Remake happening this month here in September. Maybe they could follow a similar pattern because Beyond the Horizon comes out in January of next year. Kai no Kiseki in Japan. So I feel like it's possible we could get like SC remake, like maybe like in October or November again, or maybe August or September, something like that. I don't know. I just feel like it's possible they could follow that pattern like we had this year as well. Kondo, and speaking of Trails Beyond the Horizon, Kondo also commented on Nihon Falcom's plans for brand new releases. The Trails series' latest entry, The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon, launched in Japan in September 2024, with an English version scheduled to come out in January 2026. This game, Kondo comments, is in a similar position to the first Trails in the Sky story-wise, so we are, of course, preparing a sequel. The sequel is being developed in parallel with Trails in the Sky first chapter, but Nihon Falcom isn't ready to make formal announcements about it quite yet. It's very fair. Just keep on cooking, Falcom, like you guys always do. We'll await the news when you guys are ready to share. Commenting on his overall strategy for the Trails franchise development. Oh yeah, before I go on with the rest of this, I thought this part was really interesting to hear Kondo say this. Kondo says, before depicting the series' climax in Kai no Kiseki, I wanted us to remake the first Trails in the Sky. The Trails series has become something of a veteran-oriented franchise, and I don't want my staff to become too accustomed to just making sequels. Also, the Trails team had grown a bit tired, so I felt we needed a step where we could recharge our batteries. I thought that was really interesting, which I guess kind of makes sense because they've been like at hard work. Falcom has for like so many years for the Trails games, especially when it came to Japan. Because before like kind of Reverie and like Daybreak One, for over here in the West, it kind of took like a long time for like the games to come out over here. But I remember from like all the stuff I've heard in the past of like Japan, they've kind of were like putting them out like pretty quickly in Japan. So I guess it makes sense to hear talk about like that because no matter how much fun you're having and how much you're enjoying doing all the work, you're eventually going to hit a point where you're like, we need to like I don't know, like either let off some steam or kind of like take a break to like think about where we want to take this next, you know, which I totally understand. Again, like I was saying, I thought was very interesting to hear Kondo talk about that. I feel like we never really got to hear him talk about things like that. I could be wrong, but at least I haven't really heard him talk about stuff like that as much. While continuing to develop new mainline installments, Kondo explains Nihon Falcom hopes to also put more titles like Trails in the Sky the First, which can serve as an entry point for newcomers, which I think is absolutely huge. That's always been one of the biggest, not criticisms, but one of the biggest talking points that newer players have talked about with Trails is where they never really were sure where to start, considering with how many games there were, and of course with the original Sky games being older, and also the only way to play them in the West is on Steam, or if you have the original like versions on PSP or whatever. I understand. So that is something I've always really liked Nihon Falcom doing as well, and is trying to have better ways for newcomers to join in, because it's a series where I still to this day would love to see even more people jump in, because it's such an unforgettable journey that you're always going to remember to the end of time, or at least I definitely will. I love this series so much. I think that both kinds of titles, those aimed at new players and those for longtime Trails fans, are something the series can't survive without. We're approaching a time when game development and sales methods will no longer work the way they have in the past, so it's going to be trial and error for us, but we'll do our best. Trails in the Sky the First launches September 19, 2025 for PC, through Steam, Nintendo Switch, and PS5. The game will also receive a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, which can be purchased in an upgrade pack for $1, which is also something I, now seeing this again in this article, wanted to talk about that again. I forgot that that is kind of like a mini thing I wanted to throw into this video as well. But yeah, they are making a Switch 2 version of the Sky remake, which is cool. I really like that. And I mean, I believe they kind of teased that in like one of the earlier trailers. The trailer they had telling you like, yo, the demo's out now to play. I think they had like in the corner like the logo of Switch 2, which was like, okay, there we go, we get a Switch 2 version, which is nice. I really do like that, and I think it's probably gonna be there at launch, the 19th, because I did not see any mention of like, oh, you gotta wait like a couple months or whatever for a Switch 2 version. So I would imagine it's going to be there on the 19th. If I'm wrong about that, then feel free to correct me on that. But yeah, over here on the website, they kind of just tell you, you know, what you would expect from a Switch 2 version, like high resolution, frame rate, sharper, smoother graphics, reduced load times, No changes in game content, of course, because it's just like a higher spec version, and $1 upgrade pack. Now, would it have probably been better if this, of course, was a free upgrade pack? Yes. But the fact that it is $1, $1 is pretty close enough to it being free. I still think it probably should have been free, but, that is very, very nice of them to do that, considering the fact that other upgrade packs for Nintendo for Switch 2 have been really strange recently with how they handle stuff like that. So I do appreciate that Falcom's like, you know what? You still gotta cost something, but we're literally making it basically like the lowest it can be. So I do appreciate that. So to Nintendo Switch players who have a Switch 2, you no longer have to fret. You can finally have a version that'll probably maybe be on par with the PS5 version with all that good stuff with better frame rate and reduced load times. The last article I want to go over here today is right over here at noisypixel.net, this is where it talks about the just very small stuff I mentioned earlier, where like they kind of talk about like barely, I guess, like the possibility of like Crossbell game remakes. It's not really like the main reason I wanted to go over that, even though I did say that I wanted to go over it for that reason kind of too. The main reason is also because this article over here kind of goes a little more about some other stuff that was mentioned before, of like the Kondo interview. So let's quickly skip over that until we get to some points like this that are somewhat newer from what I've mentioned before. So why start with Sky FC? According to Kondo, there were two key reasons. With the 20th anniversary approaching, fans frequently asked Falcom for a way to experience Sky FC again. At the same time, the studio recognized that the Trails franchise had become increasingly insular after 2 decades of sequels. By remaking the very first game, the team aims to provide a genuine entry point for newcomers while preserving the spirit that defined the original. Kondo also noted that international fans often ask when and where they should begin the series, not when, just where, while it has always been possible to jump in with newer entries like Cold Steel or Trails Through Daybreak. The remake of Sky FC is being designed as the friendliest starting point yet, with reworked tutorials and more accessible explanations of the world. This remake is structured into 5 chapters, each including significant new quests designed to give more attention to side characters. This appears to exclude the prologue based on how the demo was relatively one-to-one. And as someone who recently did finish the demo for myself, it was absolutely fantastic, but I do agree, it was pretty much one-to-one. But that's all I really wanted it to be anyways. That's really all most of us wanted the remake to be, outside of the additional new stuff that remakes obviously bring. We didn't really need this, because Trails is like definitely the thing you don't want to have a remake be like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it like completely like changes like half of the story pretty much. The result is a significantly longer game. Even internal staff required over 70 hours to finish a full playthrough. Voice acting and the shift to 3D exploration also contribute to the increased playtime. Every track has been newly arranged for the remake, including fan favorites like Silver Will. While no brand new songs were added, the sound team worked to bring a fresh energy to music that has already been reinterpreted many times across the franchise. Now, points like these aren't really like super related, of course, to just like the possibility of like future remakes and stuff, but it's still fun to go over and talk about that because it's already in the article. Looking ahead, now this is kind of the point where like it barely talks about Crossbell. Kondo confirmed that Trails in the Sky SC would most likely be remade as Trails in the Sky II, and ideally without long delay between releases. Again, I still think it's highly possible it could be next year. Other remakes such as Zero and Azure remain a possibility if fan interest is strong enough. The aim, Kondo stresses, to both expand the Trails audience and reward longtime players. So again, just like I was saying many times, they like barely touch upon the idea of Zero and Azure, which I made sure I tried to state like earlier, but I still wanted to include it because like I brought up the idea that like I saw somewhere that they brought it up, and you know me, I always got to fulfill my promises when it comes to things I'm talking about in these kinds of videos. All right then, with me finishing going over that last article, that now leaves us right here at the end. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, going over Falcom laying out that they are going to be doing a remake of Trails in the Sky SC, which again, pretty sure we all expected them to do that, since you can't just leave it with just remaking the first game. But for the last time, it was really cool to just kind of hear them talk more about that, and like the future of like remakes for the series and how it depends on fan reception and all of that. And before I finish off the video, I just want to quickly go over maybe what we could expect to see for a remake of SC outside of the obvious, with like such as like them bringing in like the new characters that got introduced to that point, such as Kevin and all of the Ouroboros enforcers, with Ren, Luciola, Walter the Direwolf, Lublon, Campanella, and of course Weissman as the first Anguis of the Society of Ouroboros. that you see. Now, usually Trail sequels love to have their new gameplay features that are different from the first game, such as Azure, coming from 0, had the burst system from the end of the chapters, Cold Steel 2 from 1 had the original overdrive, then 3 and 4 the Brave Orders, and so on. So it's highly possible they could maybe do something with the SC remake, although considering this is obviously going to be following the remake of 1, I can't imagine them doing anything super major that already has not been done in Remake 1. The most I can maybe see them doing is like maybe some enhancements to the new overdrive system, or maybe some other kind of combat stuff like that too. Maybe they could kind of implement more of like Daybreak stuff with like the shard-like system, although it can't entirely be like that because there are no shards at that point in the game with the ornaments in terms of the story and like the world. But I'm sure they can figure something out, because they kind of figured something out with like the Brave Attack system that like Cold Steel had, even though there's no combat link. So we'll just have to wait and see what Falcom does with SC Remake when it eventually is announced and eventually comes out. My guess still being next year, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video and didn't hear more about the future of Trails and the idea of remakes and stuff like that. We're coming very, very close to the release of the Sky remake. We only got like, I think maybe like a week and a half or 2 weeks left to go. So I'm very excited for that. And knowing how crazy Falcom is, since they announced Beyond the Horizon, like before Sky Remake's even out, we'll probably maybe see the announcement of Remake 2 a lot sooner than we're thinking we're going to. So once again, from the top, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see y'all later, Zemurians.